I cannot let this go unchecked. Robert Kiyosaki, the famed author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, had one of the most confusingly spoken sentences around 401ks and the collapse of the economy and the wealth of baby boomers. I'm going to play the clip here in a sec and break down what in the world he was thinking, or attempt to break down what I think he was trying to convey, and show you exactly why the logic broke down and why it's extremely dangerous, the message that he is trying to send. So first, let's break down the clip.
Will, from history, is there a point where people flip, or is there always going to be this growing divide? And when is that breaking point?
There's going to be some trigger event that brings the whole thing down. That's why I wrote a book called Rich Dad's Prophecy. I think it's going to happen in the stock market. And when that happens, but it was designed back in 74, ERISA, Employee Retirement Income Security Act, 401k. I think it sets out 74, the same year Kissinger backed the dollar with oil, petrodollar. Now we have a war on Hormuz. The stock market is all-time high, and baby boomers now are 75 years old. When the S&P crashes, they're homeless. I don't think it's a mistake. I think it's a setup.
All right, now he threw a whole bunch of stuff out there in a short amount of time. Anytime somebody throws out a bunch of terms, a bunch of things, and throws out that something was designed by the government, people are more likely to believe you. And as long as you keep moving and don't sit there long enough, people won't question you unless you got the ability to pause it and ask a whole bunch of questions. That's exactly what we're going to do here. I'm going to break down exactly why, again, that is important. So check this out. He brought up 5 things in quick succession. First, he threw out his book, which has a grand prophecy. That's going to come back here in a minute. Then he brought up how the stock market was going to crash. That's 2. Then he talked about how 401ks were designed by the government. All right. Then he talked about oil and how it was linked to the dollar, which is a wild assumption. We can get to that here in a sec. And then he brought up homelessness. All that stuff is kind of jumbled up stuff. Let me throw out my book, homelessness. Market's going to crash. The 401k was designed by the government to make us all go broke. Let me throw in Henry Kissinger randomly and just like jumble all this stuff up. Everything's going to crash. But what you do need is my prophecy that's written in this book, and just dance on to the next topic. None of those things really make a whole bunch of sense. And he's not alone. There are a lot of people who believe that 401ks are some grand scheme that's going to bankrupt everybody and that it is some huge scam. I am, though, going to give one piece of credit to the people who do believe that they're not the best things in the world, and then break down each piece of where Robert Kiyosaki's logic completely falls apart. It is true that 401ks are not the best, most perfect thing in the world. Everything does have some measure of flaws. I probably would have preferred pensions. If we could go back pre-1970s and everybody had a pension, we all knew this is exactly how much you're going to get for the rest of your life, and you, the individual, don't have to take a portion of your own salary and figure out how much you need in retirement, maybe we all would have been better off. And it is true that the creator, I think his name was Ted Banner or Ed Banner, I'll put his name here, did have some regrets around the 401k. And the reason why this is true is because it did allow companies to shift the risk from them to you. That part is true. That part is true, because now think of it. All you had to do was go to work, and your workplace had to figure out how much they needed to budget and invest on your behalf. You really didn't have any control over that. Now you have to. You have to decide at 10% to 15%. You put in all your money in S&P 500. All of these things you have to do with the 401k. Now, some, in defense of that, would say, well, while that was true, you did not have any flexibility. Because if I had to stay here and work for 20 years to get my pension, I wasn't able to get up and leave. I had to stay with the school system. I had to stay with the fire department or the production plant or whatever it was. If they fired me, I didn't get my 15 years of service. I didn't get my 20 or 30 years of service. I had to start over somewhere else. And that's not good for me. What if I had to leave town because the plant closed? What happens to my pension then? That's a fair point. 401k does allow me to invest as much as I want. If I wanted to invest way more, I had the ability to retire early. Pros and cons. But again, I think I would probably prefer the guarantee. So that's the 401k side of it, right? There is a piece of validity, but like most conspiracy theorists, they take just a little piece of something that makes sense and then construe it completely out of order. Because in context, he didn't just say, hey, 401ks, they're good because of this and bad because of this. He just added that, then a stock market crash out of nowhere, then added homelessness, then added oil. Let's start with oil. How is oil related to homelessness? And he also brought in baby boomers. Well, baby boomers, for the most part, are the largest home owning block. Many of them, not all, many of them have already paid off their homes and have been in home ownership for quite some time. Even if the stock market were to crash, I don't think that is going to cause a major jump in people missing out on their mortgages among baby boomers. Where we didn't see it during the pandemic. That's when the market crashed last. We didn't see a jump in people losing their homes. Not a thing among that demographic. Now, not every baby boomer is rich. Okay, we do know that. But this is the wealthiest demographic in American history, right? They are the primary homeowners today. And again, they've been owning their homes for the longest. Many of them, not all, have already paid off their homes. I don't think oil is related. It's just something that's happening now. America does have an addiction to oil. We do know that. There's some world history there. It's not related. And there's nothing really linking the US dollar to oil other than the fact that they're denominated in US dollars. Now that goes to something a bit bigger, just about US trade in and of itself, but that's not some grand conspiracy. We know that the US dollar is the world's largest currency reserve. Now a bit of that is changing, but what does that have to do with the stock market in and of itself? What does that have to do with the housing market and homelessness? Nothing. Not a thing. It is a separate thing with oil that has nothing to do with the housing market, that has very little to do with the stock market. Can oil shocks impact the stock market every now and then? Yes, it can. It has happened at some points of the year, but we've seen the stock market go up because of AI and go down because of oil, and vice versa. It can be impacted by multiple things, not just oil. So what correlation is there here just because of oil in and of itself? Like, where was oil in 2025, 2024? You don't know, because that is not the only thing that is driving the stock market in and of itself. You see what I mean? Like, you're just throwing out all of these random things and hoping that they come together to scare you into buying a book or doing whatever plan that is expecting you to do. And then you have to, unfortunately, consider the source here. Back in the 90s, when his book came out, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it was extremely popular. Now, I can get into the case of whether it is a credible book today. Maybe we can do that video. But at this point, is Robert Kiyosaki a credible narrator? I'm somebody that tells you that sometimes you need to update your financial experts and your financial advice, because this is the same guy that told y'all to invest in tuna cans. And that's not the thing that is working today. It never did, right? I'm not sure if this is something that makes sense in today's economy, and the dots that he is trying to connect don't actually go anywhere. That doesn't mean that there aren't problems in the U.S. economy. We have covered them on this channel. This one, though, isn't one of these, because what would be the solution? It's not tuna cans. It's not tuna cans. That's not it, right? If he's constantly predicting the next stock market change, or the next stock market crash, rather, well, where are you supposed to go? And if you are somebody who is, let's say, age 40 and under, well, what are you supposed to do, right? When housing prices are as high as they are, and the average first-time home buyer is already 40, and it's difficult for you to get in. So if it's not going to be the housing market, it's not going to be the stock market, is it supposed to be Bitcoin? Well, where's Bitcoin now? Where's gold in this environment right now? So like none of his stuff actually connects in a way that makes sense. And let's also go back to the narrator piece, the unreliable narrator piece. He is consistently predicting a stock market crash every single day. Every single day, every single year, he says that there's going to be some terrible crash. One day he's going to be right. All right, he might have been right in 2022, which the market did crash. He was right for the first half of 2020. I'm sure he predicted the stock market crash. And if I got up here and predicted the stock market was going to crash every single day, I'd be right too at some point. And I don't think that we should trust him anymore. I'm not sure we should trust him in the 90s either. But that's a retrospective that we can go back and review if you think that is valuable. But if you want financial tips and things that work in this economy, then you want to check out these videos next.